Hello boys and girls, today you are working on your Peter Max pop art paintings and we are going to be using watercolors today for our flags that we are painting for Veterans Day in honor of the people who serve our country in the military. When you are using watercolors, one of the most important things when we think about craftsmanship is that we use enough water in our watercolors. We're using them correctly, so make sure you are using these watercolors how I show you to right now. Alright, so your first step with your paintbrush, you are going to get some water and you will be putting that into whatever color you plan to use, and I would start your painting by painting your border. So I'm going to kind of scoop some water into the color that I want to use so that there's a little bit of a puddle of water in that color. Now, I don't need a huge puddle of water. You never want to use too much water because then it takes too long for your painting to dry and you might even rip your paper. But I would get a few drops of water in your color, and then you will swirl your paintbrush around, knowing that you can keep your paintbrush straight up and down, not jabbing it into the paint. Keep it straight up and down and be very gentle in your color. We're never scooping out paint out of watercolors. It should be liquid like water, and that water is mixing with the color. So then you take that color, and I, again, am starting in my border of my flag. And you can decide if you want to have a really bright color, you'll go back in and get some more paint after it starts to get dry. But this is actually a technique right here that I'm doing called dry brushing. If that's something that you would like to see on the outside of your flag, you could do some dry brushing in your color. Otherwise, if you feel like your color is dry and you need more, you're going to dip your brush back into the water. You're not going to clean off your brush if you're using the same color, so don't touch it in the bottom of your cup. Just dip it in the top of your water, go back to that same color, swirl a few times, like 4 to 5 times for watercolors, and then go ahead and go back to your border. Now for my border, I'm kind of going to tie-dye a bunch of different colors and do some dry brushing and some wet brushing. So again, I'm going to dip back into the top of my water to get more of that same color. Bring it over to this side. It's a nice bright magenta color I have here. And one more time, just touching in the water cup, going back and swirling a few times, and finishing that off down here. Now when you do switch colors, you will touch your paintbrush gently in the bottom of your water cup, slide it up the side, and then you might wipe it off onto your paper towel to make sure that there's no color on your paper towel. So now that I'm switching colors, I need to do the same thing as when I started my first color. So I need to get a little bit of water puddled into the color that I'm going to use. So I'm going to use orange next, swirling into that color a few times. And now I'm going to kind of mix my orange in with the first color I made. And anytime I feel like my brush is dry or I need more paint, I touch the water, swirl back into my paint, and go again. Now if your paint right here seems really wet and that puddle is really wet, you don't always have to touch back into your water cup. Like right now there's plenty of water in here that I'm not scooping paint out or anything like that. So we can do it that way as well. Okay, so now I'm going to touch back into my color, back over here, continue painting my orange around my border. Alright, now that I'm done with this part of the border, I'm going to be moving on to my flag. One more thing, make sure that when you are doing your border, you're not using too much water. We don't want puddles of water on our painting, and we don't want our paper to start to rip or get really loose where it's going to rip. So be careful not to use too much water. If you ever feel like you have too much water, take a paper towel and kind of dab it up. Alright, so now I'm going to be working on my flag. So I'm going to start with my blue part where my stars might normally be. And we know that this flag is a pop art flag. We're not worried about it looking exactly like our American flag. So I'm not even drawing in my square. I'm not even drawing in my stripes. I am just kind of painting in where I think that square might be for my flag. I'm kind of doing it loosely where it's not like this perfect square. It's kind of wavy, almost like my flag is waving. The other thing about pop art is we can change the colors, so I'm going to make it look like our American flag by using red, white, and blue, but I might add in some other colors along with that. So now that I have laid down this blue and it's still a little bit wet, I might even add in another color. So I'm cleaning off my brush, touching it in the bottom of my water, wiping it off, making sure it's clean. Then I might even touch my brush into some purple and just kind of mix that in with my blue in a couple of places to make it interesting, because pop art is taking something popular like our flag and turning it into art, and so we are kind of changing the colors and some of the designs of our flag to make it really beautiful, make people see it in a different way. So I'm just adding kind of a shadow of purple in the blue part of my flag. Alright, and you could choose any color that you want. We know that cool colors go nicely together, so that's why I chose purple. Now I'm going to go on to my red stripes, and now again, I'm not super worried about getting the exact number of stripes on the flag. That's up to you if you would like to count out your stripes. You decide if you want really thick stripes or skinny stripes. That's kind of your choice. Make sure that you are not digging into your red paint. I know that if your red paint is light, it starts to look pink. That's fine. So you use a little bit less water when you're doing red if you want to have that really bright United States red. But do not dig into your paint. You still need to have water in your paint when you are getting this color out. Alright? So again, when you're not switching your color, just touch your brush in the top of the water. Don't clean it off if you're using the same color. That wastes the paint. Swirl into that same color again. Have this one kind of go all the way across. And notice how my stripes are kind of waving to make my flag look like it's moving a little bit. So that's something that you could do as well. Do one more stripe down here. Alright, and same thing with the red. If you wish to add another color in with it or a design, you can do that as well. So I just clean off my brush so I could add another color. Now I'm dipping back into my paint, and I think I might try to add some orange to my red, and I already have some water in there. So I might just add in some little streaks of orange to go along with my red. Or even shadow into my white part. Again, just touch into that water. Don't clean off your brush if you're using the same color. So I'm just adding orange along with my red here. Now I'm done with that color, cleaning that off, wiping it off. If you choose, you are welcome to use the white paint in your watercolors. That might add a little bit of a difference in color in your white stripes, because if you do this, then you can also kind of have a touch of another color in it, just barely any. Like I might add a little tiny touch of blue to my white to give it kind of that shadow look, but I barely touched my paintbrush into that color. Alright, so if you use your white, you can kind of mix in other colors along with that, kind of like I just showed you. And keep going with that idea as well. But I would leave it mostly white with just little light touches of other colors in there. Alright. So once you are done with your stripes on your flag, your last step would be to add some patterns or designs or other small details that you might want to add in either up here in the blue part of your flag, around your border. You can go back and add some extra touches. You're welcome to use different sizes of paintbrushes. If you want a skinnier one, you could do that. So same thing, you're still never scooping paint out. You want to have a puddle of paint in whatever color you are using. You might go and add stars or even one star in your flag, or you could, I've noticed Peter Max sometimes does a heart in his flag, so that's a design that you might do as well. I've seen other students write things like "Thank you, veterans" or something like that. So this is kind of the creative part in the design, where you can kind of add whatever designs and patterns that you would like to add around the rest of your flag. Now it is your turn to create your own Peter Max Pop Art flag. You get to choose any colors, designs, techniques, patterns that you want on your flag to turn this popular thing that represents our country into something that people can look at in a different way. Have fun making your pop art today.